Welcome everyone to the DNX Show. Good morning, Josh. What's up?
What's up, man? Can you hear me okay?
Yep. And yeah, sometimes I think it's like about 90%. I can hear you pretty good. Maybe it was my volume, but no, it sounds good. And what was I going to mention? I forget some bullshit. But no, it's afternoon. That's what I was going to say. Yeah, so it's afternoon for you. Morning for me, everybody. Thanks for being here. We'll get started in just a second. I mean, we're already live and we're already streaming on YouTube. But Josh, so when did you take off to the UK?
This weekend.
Yeah, I figured
Yeah.
you may be up for this, you may not. So, what are we going to do about the show? Any ideas yet? You want to? Guess it would be like 6 p.m. there on a
I'm just
Thursday.
gonna be here, go through the motion.
Yeah. Well, we'll you'll take a temperature once you get there and see what's happening because you're going to be there a long time. So it's not like, hey, at some point you may want to jump on here. But how long are you going to be gone for? 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let you guys know. I'll try and jump on. We'll try and keep the schedule the same, but you know, I'll uh, I'll keep you in the loop.
Yeah. I mean, well, so there's who goes? You, your wife, and the 3 kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So pray for me on that flight this Sunday.
Yeah, that's a. I mean, it is traveling with kids is not easy, especially you got them all ages. All right, everybody, thanks for being here. We got a lot of stuff to go over. I mean, there's so much news in the domain space every single week. Um, I was going to talk a few things, Josh, about I do the legal show, and boy, it seems to me like there's more bullshit UDRPs filed than ever. I might talk about a few, but I know you guys were on Sherpa. You were talking about like a name like Sunergy, and a lot of trademarks out there on it. People think you can be pigeonholed, like, oh, they already have a mark in that class, so you can't use it, and so on. When it comes to you buying, names, and you spend some money on some names, do you look at uh, how heavy it's trademarked already, or do you care too much about it? But what research do you do when you're buying a name that you think may have marks, already established in certain classes and so on?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I used to look at it a lot. I feel like I'm pretty. I filed trademarks. I've worked with companies on their trademarks. I've gone through some pretty complex trademark cases. So, whether it's true or not true, I feel fairly confident in that area. Um, I so you know, on a case like a name like Sunergy, I think it's probably worth just having a look. Uh, you know, Seeing what kind of companies are out there already, seeing if they have trademark or not, seeing what trademarks exist in which categories. It's not a bad exercise, and sometimes it's important to do. But I would say for the most part, I don't I don't spend much time looking. Like it's if it's an obvious if it's a clear and obvious trademark, um, I like to think that I would recognize that right off the bat, and if it's not, then it's already debatable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like Coca-Cola, we all know. Okay, so someone gets Coca-Cola is big different than Delta, although they're famous, right? There's famous trademarks on both. So I agree. And when it comes to, it really is a lot your intent too when you're buying a domain name. Because say you are buying a name, purplemattress.com. There's a company, Purple, that's in the mattress space. But if you were selling purple mattresses, you may still have a right to it. But if your intention was to get this name, it really in law, but I mean in the UDRP, and this is always the hard one to figure out, especially when a domain owner doesn't reply, and that is, what were you thinking when you bought the name? That's why panelists always want to ask, what were you thinking when you bought the name? If you say I was thinking of them, that you still that's not good if you're thinking of a specific trademark owner, but that doesn't necessarily mean you registered it in bad faith, because you could think, hey, I was thinking of Delta Dental or Delta Airlines or Delta whoever, faucets, because when I saw Delta, I thought, hey, that company may want to use this for something, but I would use it for this, so, something different. Whether Delta Technologies, let's say, if it was available. My point is, if you thought of, if you're registering even a generic name, because I want people to know this, if you're registering what you consider descriptive or generic, but you have a trademark owner in mind, and then you reach right out to them, and then you price it, substantially high, and you're taking all these actions that appear to be targeting. It is targeting then. I mean, then you can actually lose a name that you would otherwise have the rights to. So sometimes your actions do come into play, even though you think, no, anybody could own that name. It's true. But I just see that. I know there's a case, somebody lost a name, entron.org. And I thought, who was, it looked like an Enron with a T, but there's a company called Entron that won the name from this person that had it and had it priced. I think this case, I don't know. I can't recall the facts on this one, but they may have had it for $5,000. But the point was, Mike Mann owns Entron.com and has it priced at like a $500,000. And this company won the .org. So could imagine they would, maybe they feel comfortable going after the .com, even though I think the .com has a much earlier registration date, and Mike Mann would probably get attorneys. But anyway, I'm seeing my partner Chad's involved in a UDRP right now. Companies spend $1,500 and they're just getting really, confident, really bold now, and just filing against, names that are just, doesn't, you would think that the domain owner certainly has rights to, but still, like I mentioned, if you got to be careful in your actions and not, still not target, even if you have a generic name. So, yeah, I saw that shirt, but you guys covered a lot of good stuff. It is cool. I hope Drew's listening to this. It's cool sometimes when he's not around there, because then you hear more from everybody else. But yeah, this is still in his range, I think. Here, it's like fucking maybe 6 o'clock his time, because I know he doesn't like to do anything after 6 or after 8. I can't remember. I don't know his schedule, but I do want to have him on here so we can fucking, you handle him from one side, I handle him from the other. He won't be able to get out of here alive. But no, I do. I did like that Sherpa show. Well, Josh, I mean, there's a lot of topics. Anything at the top of your mind you want to touch on before I go crazy for the next hour and a half?
No, man. No, I don't have anything that I'm thinking of. I'll chime in when you need me, and if I have anything that I need to blurt out.
Well, I need one, I'll say I saw Barman got a new Audi. Did you recommend that to him?
No, but he did like put the idea in my mind, and I just went and picked up a new car this morning as well.
Well, did you get an Audi or no?
No, I got an X7 M60i, and it's pretty sick.
Jeez, it's awesome. And I have an Audi A7, so I really liked his car. This is fucking. I knew a guy that had a fucking speedster like what Barman got. The guy souped it all up like these wagons, But so what'd you do? Just go down to the deal? Did you do like I mean, how was the negotiation? Did you already know what you were going to get, or did you go in there and get, you know, messed around a little bit? I mean, how was it working with
I
the
I
car
did
lot?
it. I always deal with the internet sales managers, man. I don't like the whole in-person thing. I get everything done over remotely, and then I just come in and sign the paperwork once we got everything sorted out.
Yeah, so that's a BMW, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got I mean, with all these letters, but I knew it was, but just wanted to make sure. Well, yeah, it's an awesome car. Well, I'm a big timer too. I basically just call a guy down at the shop and say, "Bring me these two cars," and they brought them. Lucky, basically. I mean, just know a guy. I know a guy that runs a car lot. But the point is, yeah. So you get everything squared away. So you drove home. Well, before we get on domains, what color is it?
White, white exterior, white interior.
What a fucking like a prince. Um, okay, no, that's cool. Well, you're really ballsy to have kids, and you got a white interior, and you know, I hope there's a fucking juice packet immediately.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I got a big car with them in mind, but I'm not 100% sure if I want them in it that often. My wife has a Hyundai Palisade, and that is our. I think that's the go-to when the kids are involved.
right, right. No, that's a nice. Congratulations. That's classy, and it's fucking nice to have a new ride. But all right, everyone, thanks for being here. This is the DNX Show. You can go to dnxshow.com. Josh, I was thinking about, of course, I got the two domains, dnxshow.com and dnx.show. Of course, I just did that as a play on your company, DNX, which I don't know. What do you consider DNX stands for dnx.com? Is that domain name exchange? What do you consider that to stand for, if anything?
I don't think about it as standing for anything. But you know whatever, whatever the people want it to stand for, it stands for, I guess. Um, I just, I just like the sound of DNX. I think it also sounds a little bit like DNS. It's related to domains. You could interpret it as exchange, but I think we're going to do a lot more than that. But I just think that it's a pretty cool, memorable brand, and you know, whatever you guys want to call it, you can.
Yeah, that was the. That's why you said, yeah, it was Todd's idea to call this DNX. It was because the X can stand for anything, just like you said. So domain name. I liked it, domain name exchange for a lot of the stuff that you were doing over there. But anyway, I bring it up because so I got DNL show for the domain name law show, DNX show for this one, dnxshow.com. I think it's cool to have these other extensions, like a dot show, but coming from the old school, still, it's like if you don't want to confuse people, you just say, as soon as you say dnxshow.com, then they know, okay, that's the website. To the left of it is the main thing. The .com is just standard, and it's normal. Because as much as I believe people are picking up, or adopting the new extensions, and we know the younger folks are like, hey, so what's the extension? They understand it, but it just seems that the the anchor have been set, or these, I would say the foundation for .com, that even I'm like, listen, dnlshow.com, dnxshow.com, you can get these .shows. There was a domain that sold carbonenergy.com for 400K. I wanted to ask you, what do you think about that price first? Carbonenergy.com, 400K.
I think that you should have some names in your portfolio that you moonshot, and obviously he got a great price, um, and in the past I noticed in the price history he's had priced much lower in the past, and he had it priced at with a buy it now of 400K, and I guess it sold at the buy it now price. So you know very rare for a name to sell that that high, obviously. B, very rare for someone to go in and not even negotiate. So these things happen in the domain space, and that's a small percentage of your portfolio you should be trying to acquire names that you can moonshot a little bit. um, carbonenergy.com is definitely a name, in my opinion, that kind of like fits that criteria. It's very you know it's a name that is not easy to think of. Well, you can't really, there is no alternatives, right? It's like you can't call, for carbon energy, you can't call it anything else but carbon energy. It's obviously worth a lot of money, that particular uh that industry. The energy space is huge, and yeah, it's a really cool sale. Happy for the guy.
If anybody has, we want to have a conversation here with folks. So basically, not about necessarily about this, but raise your hand, come on up, and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about in the domain space. here's concerns I have, like, I guess Dan's, sundown or it's gone now. I never did use Dan too much, a little bit, but people, there's a lot of topics in the space that, you know, I have notes on, like, hey, maybe we'll talk about that, but I'm interested. Josh and I are interested. You know the story. I'm not going to fucking say it over and over. Come on and let's talk domains. But Josh, carbon dot energy. There was a gentleman. Was it Richard? I can't remember his name now. I've talked to him a lot on Clubhouse back in the day when everybody was fucking held up in their house. He had carbon neutrality, something, and he thought it was fucking, because it's popular term in that space. But I was always like, no, I'm not high on the name, not at all. I don't care. That's like, things are super popular, search terms, or maybe in a certain industry. They just, if they don't, I think you could, hold them forever anyway. Certainly don't think they're six figures. But then again, everybody wanted to bring up that thing that uh, cognitive automation, or cognitive, whatever that fucking name was, that sold for 150,000. People want to bring up the most bullshit things. So it's like lightning striking. You just mentioned in the domain space. Yeah, shit happens, but the lightning strikes right around me. I'm like, and I'm not. It I'm so not concerned about it hitting me, even though I have, I want it to. I'll walk right out in the fucking thunderstorm. Lightning strikes in this business, and you'll see it. I'm just telling all you domain investors. It'll strike, 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 and never strike you. And you can wear a tinfoil hat, whatever you want to do. It's the weirdest thing. You want it to hit you, because these sales are unbelievable, and the names are just like yours. You have one just like it. Like I said, carbon energy. It's like carbon neutrality. I bet if I knew anything about that business, they go hand in hand like a church and steeple. Here's the people. The thing is, I just get frustrated because I know I've watched it for years. Ron Jackson's DN Journal list, and you're like, I got names exactly like these, better, and yours don't sell. Better price. Where are the people? And it can be, domain investing is awesome, but it's it's well, it's a tough one. And there's sometimes you have the good stuff you can have, and the top guys know it too. I know a lot of guys that have the single words, the best cities, and they're like, fuck, you've had it forever, everybody knows you got it. It's, why isn't it selling? And it's like, you want them to move. You don't want to act like, well, I'll just hold it. No, you want to sell it. But and like I said, it strikes right next to you. Well, so carbon dot energy. What would you tell somebody who, if they owned it? Josh, that's my equivalent to carbonenergy.com. That just sold for 400K. What should I expect for this? What should I price it at? And what do you think it's worth, carbon dot energy? Are you talking? I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. Um, I saw Carbon Dot Energy was for sale for like 44K, or something like that. I'm not sure if it still is for sale for that amount, but when I checked the other day, that's what it was priced at. Um, what would I price that at? I mean, probably that 50K, something like that, with the assumption that it'll never sell and I'll end up dropping it.
Carbon energy, just think about it. That's going to be the demise of our environment. If you really think about it, what it means, we need to be moving in the other direction. And in a certain way, it kind of attests to the most important thing is making money. It's not about the future, how we're going to live on this planet, how we're going to interact with each other. I think it has some serious, negative connotations in my own perspective. I know that I'm a, kind of a dreamer and an artist that wants to, have people living in harmony. But in the next few years, our cultures aren't necessarily going to be affected by it. But it's a serious issue, completely disregarding the quality of life on this planet from how we treat the environment and how we use our energy.
Hey, you guys. Yeah, I was going to say something similar as that in recent years, the word carbon in terms of branding, pretty negative. However, the pushback I'll give is that I don't know what's going to happen or not, but there's a lot of research and a lot of startups with big money who are, carbon capture and trying to take existing carbon and recycling that into either just storing it and taking it out of the atmosphere, or if the holy grail is to be able to get carbon that exists and like is destroying the planet and putting that into energy, like carbon capture out of the atmosphere. I don't think it's going to be done in quantities of carbon that could actually be converted into efficient energy, but it could be one of those companies, right? And in that case, they're using carbon in a positive sense because they're taking existing carbon. But again, it's a stretch. I would have thought that would have sold that price, because I just thought be a smaller startup. And again, for existing big players in the energy sector, carbon is as a buzzword is pretty negative at the moment.
You ever heard the phrase, be careful what you ask for? Well, that's what I did. I asked for people to come up, but ended up being Arif and Brad. Okay, hey, listen, I'm joking, because I was just thinking if it was Siger and Breger, I would say the same thing. If it was Zerk and Jeremiah, I would have said the same thing. So, no, thanks for,
But
thanks for
Todd,
joining us.
just getting a little deeper into your conversation, it's 100% correct that it's kind of like wanting to have a hit record. You know what I mean? So and Josh is right. That's the $400,000 is like, a dream sale, and it's about, it is a great name, but in the scheme of things, with respect to the percentage of domainers that have names like that, you know what I mean, is pretty minuscule. And also those domainers that do have the single word in the city, you said, why aren't they selling? They're holding, right? That's another whole aspect to this business where we all have some really good names and they're not selling, but we're getting this information about these, one hit wonders, or these hit records, or, the golfer that, shot a 62 and won an event. Those aren't normal. So we're kind of talking about, an anomaly in the scheme of things.
Yeah,
That's kind of what I came up to mention, is that like what people really, really need to remember is that any single sale, or almost any individual sale in this industry is luck, right? With a few exceptions, sometimes you could really do some research, whatever it is that, but for the most part, especially the moonshots, it's luck. However, if you put them in, aggregate them together, you take thousands of sales, that's where you start to see patterns, and that's what you should start, analyzing, right? But never take a single sale as okay, this is going to happen to me, because chances are it won't. Like a domain like that, we always talk about 1% sell through, whatever it is. That's not a 1% sell through rate, right? At that price point, that's like 1 in 10,000 or 1 in even more than that, right? But it happens, right? And that's the thing. You have to be prepared for it. You have to price your domains accordingly. That you could take some, as Josh says, like you could long shot some of your domains, and you'll hit one every now and then. It won't be a regular thing, but that's what you want to do. You want to have in any portfolio you have, not just domains. You want to have it, what they say, like 3% or 5% of your portfolio should be like, long shots, like, high payoffs, high risk, high reward. But the rest of it, your 95%, should be, stuff that is relatively predictable. If you can actually use that word in this industry, which you can't. But again, when you're talking larger numbers, that's what it is. When you go to a casino, right? Even on the casino side, somebody takes one bet. Well, it could be win or loss. You don't know. But the aggregate, when a whole day of gambling in the casino, well, that becomes more of law of averages, right? And that's where you see, okay, how should you play? How should you do this? And it's the same thing. What sort of domain should you buy? What your price point should be? And that's how you should really be as a more, longer term investor if you want to be profitable longer term.
well, I got so many funny things to say. Josh, get ready, because I want to talk about you got ultraviolet or infrared or some bullshit thing. I can't remember which one. What is it? Which one do you have? Infrared?
Infrared.com, yeah.
Okay, it's okay. I wanted to ask you, what do you moonshot? Which ones do you have? Like, you're not going to sell them for a low price, no matter what. I mean,
Yeah,
they're
but like that's the thing. I wouldn't consider that the same. Like infrared.com, a price at, low 7 figures, I wouldn't consider, and then, I don't know, maybe take like high 6 figures depending on how I feel. I'm not really sure, but like that to me is not a moonshot. Like that is what the domain is worth. A moonshot to me is a name that maybe like has a lower kind of resale value, that you can get an outweighted return at retail in a very unique situation.
Yeah,
So I
infrared.
wouldn't put those.
Josh, infrared is what do they call it? A banger in England. That's a great name, and it's a worldwide industry, and it's a part of physics and the way humanity interacts with nature. So that's a really powerful name. Congratulations on that.
Thanks,
He likes to hear that from
appreciate
you.
it.
He knew I was being a dick about it. Hey, I thought a banger was like a bratwurst or something you drink with a fucking beer over there. Okay, so you can tell I'm in a mood. Josh, I wanted to say to Brad, him and the carbon stuff, and he was being Debbie Downer there for a minute. I wanted to speak on behalf of our president. We don't even know the future of the fucking weather. I mean, I had this parade and they said it was going to rain and it's fucking beautiful weather. How are they going to predict 50, 100 years out? I mean, when you're fucking smart like that, fucking, you just gotta fucking talk. Okay, so yeah, the carbon, that could end up being good for all we know, Brad. It could be good. Put it
No,
on a
it's not. We
sandwich.
we know enough that it's there. There's people don't understand. It's a cyclic thing, and we are basically putting out more than the environment can handle of the fossil fuels, the carbon. We have to go carbon free or beyond carbon. That's what Elon Musk was doing to sell his cars, and then all of a sudden, because he was close to the president, the project 2025 and what the president has in the big beautiful bill is going to devastate the whole the clean energy industry, and dismantle all the powerful, valuable progress we've made in transitioning into a healthier environment.
You know
I
what
don't want.
domainers think? Josh, domainers think, how's it going to affect my clean energy domains? World could die. Yeah, but I mean, should I get this clean hyphen energy? Uh, Josh, what comment were you going to have? I wanted to ask you about rank.ai for 200,000, but what were you going to say there?
I wasn't gonna say anything.
Oh, well, when someone's off mute and they're breathing, I'm like, fucking, you ready to
Wasn't
go?
me?
Yeah, no, it wasn't
Sorry.
too bad. So a rank.ai sold for 200K, and I see, you guys were talking about it, I think, on Sherpa about Starship has these great names, huh? And we talked about it here last week. It's like they just have them. They just have them. Hazel.ai, okay, but that was like 55K or something. I don't know. But Teammate, so I consider that a two word. I know people think it's one. Teammate.ai, 44K. But so everything smooth as silk with the .ais. I mean, are you, for the next 12, 24 months what would you say to domain investors who are just looking at them now, like me? Should I, seriously consider them still? Everything smooth as silk. I mean, the AI sales seem to be better than the .com. Okay, that's a stretch, but what do you say about rank.ai and these other sales?
I say that .ai names are extremely popular with end users, so the best .ai names are going to be selling for 6 figures on a pretty regular basis, and I think that rank.ai is a good name, and I'm not at this point. I'm just not really that surprised that it sells for 200K. I mean, like the .com would sell for mid 7 figures, like minimum. So yeah, I just think that .ai and .org have potential to have, you know, large six-figure sales, more than any other alternative TLDs, particularly AI, just because it's so trendy right now. So, yeah, I mean, you know, you got to take into consideration that, isn't it? I mean, I think it's a Namecheap sale. Namecheap have an incredible portfolio. So, you know, you're talking hundreds of these type of premium.ai names. So every once in a while, they'll get a six-figure sale. I'm honestly surprised that they don't report more of them. But they do tend to move a lot in that mid five-figure range. So I think that as it continues to rise, you'll see them report more six-figure sales because they'll probably be less willing to let go of some of these names in the mid five-figure range, and they'll push harder. But yeah, it's not, like I said, not a surprising sale to me.
We've never had Michael Oliver on stage. Hey, Michael, what's up? What comment or question do you have? Welcome.
I appreciate having me. Thank you. No, I'm of the group that isn't too worried about carbon emissions because, like, I mean, never mind the sides, but I think Iran and Israel both about to nuke each other's reactors, and that's probably going to offset some carbon. So I try not to get too phased by the trajectories and like the whimsical like 200-year forecasts. But what I did notice is that I'm glad Ishmael's here because he and I discussed this like a couple months ago, and he thought my exact match domains are useless. But I've been noticing that Grok and ChatGPT at least prefer them because of just the coherence. It's just so exact and simple that ChatGPT can easily understand what it is that I do that's behind the site, you know, and convey that to whoever sought me out through using the GPT.
I'm glad you brought it back to domains, Michael. But yeah, about the fucking Chat GPT, excuse my language, and right, the keywords. So over the years, I have gone back and forth. They just don't seem. I mean, you know, when you own autoparts.com is fucking great, but most of the time you own a specific product. It just has never really, you know, I don't know. It seemed like they've lagged in sales. Brandables have really come on these last 5 or 10 years for several reasons. They're cool. Hulu's a cool name. Temu, they can be trademarked. The big companies love them. Short and brandable. We're going to talk about, you know, domain length, but I'm trying to figure out if these keyword names, the exact match, EMDs, like you say, are they're still relevant and they're still okay. We can come up with, I'd say, good examples, and then some like, you know, I think they were making fun of me one time I dropped, I think, spandex shirts. Well, you have these exact type of thing. Cotton shirts, I guess,
Yeah,
would be good.
spandex is probably trademarked.
Yeah, true, but still, what you can do is if you're only selling spandex shirts, then you could use it if you're only selling those shirts. But yeah, I know it's trademarked.
For
But the
me, like, you know, because I'm an FMCG, like a consumer good trader. So for me, having eyes on me that understand that I do that, you know, owning by FMCG made sense to me. So like I wrote a little chat GPT blurb up just at feed SEO, like so hopefully I don't have to explain this to anybody. But like this has caught my attention this morning. That, you know, what had originally been a pipe dream 6 months ago when I was hand regging, you know, wholesale cosmetics. Now, you know, Grok has explained to me, well, I found Luxury Brands Direct by searching wholesale cosmetic supplier and saw that they have wholesalecosmeticsupplier.com. This reaffirmed authenticity and trust. And I'm like, yeah, exactly. That was my goal. So I feel like I'm onto something here.
Well, definitely you are,
I
because
mean, I bought up my whole, not to interrupt, but the reason it's relevant to me is I basically bought up my whole category. Beauty, luxury goods. I controlled the conversation to wherever it would go. So now I'm sitting with a portfolio of buy cosmetics wholesale down to distributefragrances.com, you know, and I'm figuring out, you know, I'm realizing as I figure out what to do with them that they're increasingly becoming more valuable.
well, I think it's really important what you're sharing because if you're buying names that you're perceiving that the chat GTP will be able to pick up easy on, I think that's the direction to go in, because that's where search and browser algorithms are going. So that, yeah, I think you're right on in choosing names with that perspective of it. Can chat GPT comprehend this prompt?
Well, it pulled me as the top wholesaler of cosmetics in the U.S. after my site was up for a month. So I took down my site because I didn't want to keep being bothered by people in the middle of the night because they're insane. You know, just you more exposure, you're going to get more insanity. But then I realized, like, oh, I know some people that, you know, they run $100 million a year wholesale business where they sell those crazy housewives. Like they have reps that do that. But, you know, I'm sitting here now trying to bridge gaps and explain to these guys why their website that they haven't updated in 10 years doesn't compare to my intent funnel. And they don't understand chat GPT. They don't understand anything. A lot of these guys are Orthodox Jews. They don't even go
But
on the
hold on,
internet.
Michael. First, you said they're becoming more valuable, and that's like who to in what sense are they selling more? But also, your chat
I'll
G.
give you, no, I'll
Hold
give
on,
you an
hold on.
example.
Okay, hold on. Chat GPT, when it knows that when you're talking about it, it's probably bringing up some of your stuff, just like Google. I mean, even more so.
Oh, for
Chat
sure.
GPT obviously knows your conversation, so it knows all
But
about your domain names and so on. So if I asked it the same question, it might not bring up your site, and you'll know by the real calls you're getting. Not, I don't want to get them in the middle of the night. Well, are you really getting them? I mean, are your
no,
phone really?
I have, if you read that blog post, that I didn't throw it up on there because I had too much of the individual's info, but I'm getting these like drafted 3-page like paragraph introductions. Hello, my name is so-and-so. This is my website. I am seeking these brands. Please like send me your catalog. Like they're very qualified and they even say in the end, how'd you hear about us? ChatGPT. And when I go look at Google Analytics and I see the spikes, I'm like, huh, this is working. You know, I mean, I hear you. I'm not just like fantasizing. I mean, I'm trading large scale business over here. So like, I'm not just fantasizing in the corner. Like, oh, someone Googled me. I think this works. Like, no, I'm sure this is working.
Okay, so keyword names you believe are
My
becoming
first
more valuable.
customer,
I mean, exact
the
match
first
domains.
little unqualified woman, she's like, you know, a little reseller. She took 12 grand of random little stock that a couple buddies of mine had in their warehouse, 2 guys, and I had them ship it directly. I made 3 grand profit for myself. And this was just like a reseller on Whatnot. Not like a legitimate, you know, but I don't think she had a tax ID. I had to bill it to her husband. I hope I don't get IRS audited for saying this, but like the scale, like I'm selling to Amazon directly. I'm selling to like large scale retailers, like the Quality King, CVS. So I know that, never mind me tackling these little insane housewives. If I can explain to TJX companies, Marshalls, that having some useless EMDs that I have in my portfolio could bring them the traffic they want, I mean, we just struck a well.
You know, if you can do that. Hey, I have these exact match. You know, Josh, I wanted to bring you in on the conversation and say, what do you invest in exact match names? I have for years, and sure, if you're a good salesman, Michael, and you can convince a big company, I'm telling you, you're going to get
Well, I have
traffic.
the
You just
relationship already because
okay,
I'm
right,
already
and then you
supplying them.
convince them, forwarding these names to your your product. Say they own, water bottles. They're selling a brand of water bottles, and you go, I own waterbottles.com. I'm telling you, you can get the proofs in it as soon as we start directing waterbottles.com to your site. Of course, they're going to have to do a little work, and I'm sure you'll tell them they need to do a little work to get the the
The
name
content
searched
behind it,
and
yeah.
indexed and so on. But still, I'm just, I'm not a big believer in it. So let me get to Josh. Josh, do you invest in exact match domain names, and specifically on domain names, value of exact match? Do you believe they're increasing in value? How do you feel about them?
Yeah, I think I've talked about this on a previous show. I think that as a newer investor, most newer, I think I talked about it with when you had Aaron from Now chatting, my stance is that um, you know, obviously there are caveats to everything. So exact match are really good for if you're going to go out and attempt to outbound your names, because you then have an array of end users that you can approach. But in a let's call it in a more passive way of investing. I think that new investors are attracted to exact match names because they associate them with value, and being recognizable, and category killer and whatnot. Uh, Instead of thinking like, how do companies brand and what do they use to brand? So uh, I used to invest in exactmatch.com names a lot more than I do today. It's funny actually. I saw there's some guy that has a good portfolio of exact match names, but he's like keeps talking about sportsagent.com, and wanting to like JV on that name and that. And it's a great name. I didn't sell it to him. I sold it to the person that sold it to him. Um, but I definitely used to buy those kind of names, and I still do. Don't get me wrong. And then um, but I think that they don't sell as often. They're the type of name that you can hold forever and like barely even get a reasonable inquiry. But having said that, just like carbonenergy.com, when the right buyer does come along, it's the type of name, these exact match names are the type of names that you can command a really high price for. And the reason why you can command a really high price for them is a little bit like related to what I've just said. It's the fact that, the average person associates that with value, which is why when the average person enters into the domain industry, they think that those are the most valuable names. Well, the everyday person running a company probably thinks similar. So when it does creep into their mind that they want an exact match name like that, you can command a high price for them. So do I invest in them? Yes. Are they the best performing assets as a domain investor? Not in today's market. Could that change? Possibly. Was it different, 10, 15, 20 years ago? Yes. Um, but yeah, I invest in them. I have some. I have like names like uh, cryotherapy.com, prototyping.com, 4dprinting.com, um, and yeah, these are the type of names that don't get much interest. But if someone in those fields, which is, these are massive industries, decides that they do want to, they have some use for that type of name, then a lot of the time you can ask a pretty steep price.
Yeah, and Michael, thanks for raising your hand again. Be sure I'm going to go to you right in a second because I like the conversation. But to play the other side, like deodorant.com, and I've worked done some things with Procter and Gamble. Yeah, they own detergent.com or shampoo.com. They don't care. I mean, they haven't proven to be super valuable, but that's the type of thing that I'm saying is you have a killer, category killer of a product, of a sector, shampoo, and then so me, I think, yeah, and then you look down all the sales data and you see it's not usually, there's certainly exceptions. Anyway, go ahead. What did you want to say about this?
Well, no, I appreciate all the perspectives on that because I don't think they differ from where I'm standing. My argument is that perhaps everyone has this unconscious, association or appreciation for EMDs because they are in fact that valuable. And yeah, the market drifted away and buyers got caught up in centralized platforms and branding and whimsical whatever.com. But I think that AI is showing us, bringing us back to the reality that those are I looked at something that said the statistic, and this might be wrong, but like the algorithm change at 2012 only shifted, like reduced rankings like 0.06% or something. Like, I mean, the spirit of climate change, I get it, but like, I don't know. I tangibly saw what it did for me with no expertise or effort. And I can't imagine, well, I can imagine what it would do for somebody with the budget. And I feel like we should command it. And rant.
Yeah, no, Michael, I agree with that. If you say, look, here's how I've used this exact match and how it's affected and benefited me, certainly that's exactly how, right, you're going to sell it. And then say, I'm confident, or here's how we would do it with this exact match for you. And then we do see these exact match big names, like whether it's homes or properties.com. Some of them are, they're not only a great name, but the sales person, the brokers, did a fine job of selling them as well. It's just you hit on it in 2012, 2013. There was that big change. Before that, I had names. People would search that exact goofy phrase. I'm not going to go into some of them, but they would search for a product, and you own that domain name, your product would come up, or your domain would come up, because if they searched a 4 word, because we know when people search, sometimes they'll search, I think most common was 3 to 4 words. If you owned that 4word.com back in the old days, you would come up number one. And still on Bing and Yahoo, exact match seem to hold more weight than they certainly do on Google. But after Google, then it was all about, we all know this anyway, as domain. When I say domain investors, most domain investors, no one does this full time. And if you do, you still came usually from another business. So most of us domain investors are entrepreneurs, or we're business folks. We have jobs in other areas, and then we come over to domain investing because we want to try to figure this out. It's like poker. Most people aren't just pro poker players, but the we know, so we know you need to have good content to be able to rank. You need basically just relevant content. And now you're bringing up ChatGPT. So now, is it changing? Google's using AI now too, obviously. But I'm saying, when you search ChatGPT, are these is ChatGPT and also uh, voice assistants. Now it's easier just to say a big long
Oh
domain
yeah.
name. So our long domain name's going to, because we relate it back to domain investing here. So our long domain name's going to be valuable because voice assistant, doesn't mind when you say something super long, and they don't misspell it either. So now all those long, hard to spell words and domain name, are they going to become more valuable? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't
Well,
think the domain is. I think search terms, are gonna, obviously.
I agree. No, and I think that having the exact match domain that matches a search term captures the intent. Let me ask you, because I don't know enough to even read Google Analytics properly. Like, I'm learning, but from my end, this is what it looked like to me. I threw up a basic portal. I pointed a bunch of domains to different pages. The pages had GPT, optimization. Nothing heavy. I did it in a weekend, and I started blogging. Basically what I'm doing is I pre-order from major brands, and I work with distributors to move large scale products. We make no margin, but we move huge money, so I'm desensitized to that. And in that, I would post a blog like, oh, I take a couple pictures of a couple palettes I had of a expensive Creed perfume. It makes great content. I put online, and I go about my day. After a month, and I'm looking at it now, I have all these searches for, that I came up for: Estee Lauder bestsellers, Sol de Janeiro bestsellers, wholesale FMCG, just picking off of words that I've blogged. And it's somehow aggregating through my funnel of EMDs. And I'm sure I could dig through and point it. I mean, I started looking at like an export of my GoDaddy portfolio of like how many unique searches, but it didn't correlate. I don't know it enough to understand, but I understand that there's something working here. It works so well, I had to take it down.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was going to say, I understand you're using the exact match domain name, and that's where you have your blogs, and that's what Google Analytics is, reviewing or analyzing. So I would wonder if you had it on another domain name, on a brandable, how would the traffic look then? Meaning, I think the
So,
weight is heavy on your content, so that's why it's getting, the search volume. It's getting some of the, basically it's getting some of those hits. It's because of the
so I
content.
guess the,
I don't think it's the
the
MD.
reason it interests me is, like, let's say people who have more content than me, people who have